Hello everybody, I am Tom and you are watching me play Warframe. Today, we're going to go over my Limbo build. This is Limbo, well Limbo Prime I should say. He looks really cool in my opinion anyway. I really love the Limbo Prime design. The hat particularly just looks really cool. But, let's go over the build. First thing first, his abilities. Limbo is a lot better than he used to be. They did a rework on him fairly recently, so if you haven't played him in like a couple of years, definitely worth picking up and playing. But his passive is that when he dodges, he will enter the rift. You will leave a tiny little rift behind, as you saw just in that start. I was standing next to the little rift that I left behind. That'll last there for 5 seconds, and anyone who passes through that will also go into the rift. You also slowly recharge energy in the rift, and each enemy that you kill will also give you 10 energy. Well, each enemy in the rift that you kill will also give you 10 energy. So he doesn't really need any problems with energy as far as I can tell. First ability is Banish. You essentially just hit an enemy and throw them into the rift. It will do some damage to them, but on the build I have it does very little damage because I have like no power strength. But he can just throw an enemy into the rift. The rift, by the way, I suppose I should explain what the rift is. The rift is like a parallel dimension, kind of. It's like a gap between this world and the void, essentially, but Limbo can control a lot of the stuff in the rift, so he can banish people there and do lots of stuff to them, but essentially you're there, but you can't be shot, and you're on like a different plane, so people will shoot at each other, even though one's in the rift and one isn't. You can shoot at them and nothing will happen, the bullets will go straight through. So it's kind of weird, but his second ability is Stasis. He freezes everything in the rift. He just stops time in the rift. It's insanely cool. So any enemy that's in the rift will get frozen in time. It's pretty self-explanatory, really. All the bullets in the rift will also get frozen in time. Yeah. Also, it's worth noting, when he first got the rework, all bullets would swap. It's now changed that only enemy bullets are stopped. So if you have friends in the rift, they can still shoot shit, which makes him far less annoying in a group. Because previously, like, he would have the rift up, and then no one could shoot anything. It had some cool ancillary benefits, but it was like being able to shoot a billion projectiles at once, and then have them all shoot at the same time. That was really cool, but it was really annoying if you were playing in a group. His third ability is Rift Surge. He surges nearby rift-bound enemies with rift energy. When killed, the rift surge is transferred to a nearby enemy outside the rift. Surge enemies that leave the rift perform a radial banish. So essentially, it's a good way of keeping a bunch of people in the rift. Having said that, I honestly don't use it that much. I usually just use Stasis and Cataclysm. And what Cataclysm does, it creates a big dome, and everything inside that dome is in the rift. So a violent blast of void energy tears open a pocket to the rift plane, which can sustain itself for a short period before collapsing in another lethal blast. Once again, the damage on the actual blast at the end of this is kind of nothing, because I have like no ability strength, because it's really not worth it. Also, I think there's a typo in here. Open a pocket of rift plane. Open a pocket of the rift plane, I think it should be. Anyway, let's go to the actual build. I have 2 builds for him. This first one here is appropriately called Map Wide. It has 280 range, which is ludicrous. That gives your Cataclysm a radius of 44.8 meters. Pretty ridiculous. I also have the duration pretty high on this at 174, so the Cataclysm lasts for just shy of a minute, 52 seconds, and Stasis lasts half as long at 26 seconds. So you can freeze enemies for 26 seconds in the rift, and you can have everyone in the rift pretty much with a 44 meter radius. But this is Corrosive Projection, Toxic Flight, which is just, you may not have seen many builds with Toxic Flight. The only reason I have it here is because I could fit Toxic Flight in here, but it gives you a bunch of speed at 24.2% bullet jump and 24.2% egg climb and wall latch, and it also gives you like a bunch of damage, toxin damage on your bullet jump. The toxin damage is kind of whatever. It's mainly here because it's both this and Firewalker are the best speed mods you can have as far as pure bullet jump and aim glide speed. But we have Prime Continuity for ability duration, Orca Message for ability duration, Overextended for a huge amount of ability range at the cost of ability strength. Cutting Drift gives us a bit more range. Also makes us a bit faster as well, but it's there for the range. Prime Flow gives a huge amount of energy. As I said earlier, you don't really need a huge amount of energy because he can get energy back very easily when he's in the rift, and he's pretty much always in the rift. However, I've coupled that with quick thinking so that it's survivability. Essentially, what quick thinking and prime flow will do is you have a bunch of energy, and when you go down to where you would take lethal damage, it drains your energy rather than draining your health. And doing so is really good for Limbo because honestly, he does, like, his base health is 300. His base shield is 300, his armor is 85. So prime flow quick thinking is pretty much the only way to keep him alive. Granted, he's in the rift a lot, and he's immortal when he's in the rift, so you don't have to worry about it too much. But just in those cases where you need to, like, get out of the rift and back into the rift or whatever, it's good to have this survivability here. We have Augur Reach here for ability range, and Stretch for more ability range. There's a theme going on here, bunch of range, bunch of duration. Arcanes is just Arcane Aegis and Arcane Nullifier. The second build we have here is what I've dubbed the lazy build, also a build that's better if you're fighting a lot of Corpus, mainly because nullifiers will actually, like a nullifier bubble, get rid of your Cataclysm. It's really quite irritating. But this is a much shorter range at only 124% range, which gives you a range of about 20 meters, 19.84 on Cataclysm. But the duration on this is much, much longer. As you can see here, 81.9 seconds, so like nearly a minute and a half of Cataclysm, and like 40 seconds of stasis. So you don't have to worry about keeping your stasis up as much, because you'll kill all the enemies by the time 40 seconds is up, pretty much always. But this here, Corrosive Projection, like before. Firewalker, because I can't fit the other one, this is just a lower rank mod. It's essentially exactly the same as Toxic Flight, except I've got it at a lower rank, I've got it at 10 rather than 12. Cunning Drift for ability range, Augur Reach for ability range, Stretch for ability range, Continuity for ability duration, Prime Flow for max energy, Quick Thinking, once again Prime Flow Quick Thinking just for survivability, Augur Message for ability duration, and Narrow Minded for a bunch of ability duration and the cost of some range. With this lower radius on Cataclysm, it's much easier to control around Corpus units, and also, unless you're doing something where you want the whole map frozen, it's often better just to run like a smaller range on Cataclysm anyway. But I'll often run this build here if I'm just doing general map stuff with Limbo. Granted, I don't often do general map stuff with Limbo, so I usually use this one here. And I will show off this one here, the really big one, because this one is the same. It's like the same build, it's just that, I mean, this one's lazy. That's why I've called it lazy. It's a lazier build because you don't have to worry about keeping your 2 up. So, we'll do the test with map wide. The weapon I've got with him, by the way, is a Vectus Prime that does a bunch of damage, notably a bunch of slash procs. It's a critical based weapon. I have a Riven for it. It's pretty ludicrous. But we'll do the 145 test because honestly doing the level 50 test is kind of pointless. It's pretty much the same. As you can see there, if you dash into the rift, he leaves this little portal behind. And now I'm in the rift. Great. I can stand in the middle of these guys. They can't do damn near anything to me. I'm invulnerable. Now I can freeze time within the rift. And let's say I want to kill this guy in particular. Let's banish him. So we can cast out 1. Oh no, we can't because we're in the rift. You know what? Let's just cast out 4. Omoe wa mou shindaru. You are all already dead. Make sure you keep the time frozen. You can see time is in the bottom right. 19 seconds left on time stop and 28 seconds left on the rift. Or the Cataclysm. But these guys are completely powerless. There's literally nothing they can do to me. Oh yeah, slash proc, he'll die. Just, whoop. As you can see there, if you're not paying attention and things start shooting you because time restarts again, you can run into some trouble. That's why quick thinking and prime flow is quite nice. Anyway, slash procced. I think that's pretty much everybody dead. Oh, there's this guy here. So I cast my 1 and I can put him into the rift. Even though he was outside the dome. And that's everything. I didn't show off his 3. It's worth noting. I guess I can. Give me a second. I'll respawn the enemies. But as you can see there, he is, I mean, incredibly good solo. You can survive anything, pretty much, because you can just go into the rift. If you're in the rift, you're fine. Sure, let's just simulate same enemies. Stop the time in the rift. And we can then just, whoops. Cataclysm everything up. Can rift surge things. They get this weird electrical stuff around them. Doing this will put more things in the rift. But honestly, do I care? Not really. I pretty much only use his 2 and his 4. Everything's stopped, which makes everything dead. As long as you're coupled with a good gun that can do a lot of damage. I generally prefer single target damage, hence I use the vectors. But you could just as easily use something that does, like, you see these guys are actually... These guys are frozen outside the rift because I use Rift Surge. But these guys are nothing when it comes to Limbo because if they're frozen, they can't shoot you. And if they can't shoot... Also, if they're frozen, it's very easy to shoot them in the head, which helps. Headshots up your damage, amazingly. I think that's everything gone as well. Nope, one more. Sweet. So that's Limbo in a nutshell. He freezes time in the rift, then puts everything in the rift so everything is frozen. And then he shoots them in the head. It's worth noting as well that you can, like... I can't target that. Is there something... You can actually banish some targets, like swordy defense targets, for instance, where you have to protect a person. You can actually just banish the person into the rift and then no one has to worry about it ever. As long as you don't put anything else in the rift to shoot him, he's just in the rift and nothing can hurt him. So there's stuff you can do that. It's kind of got like niche uses, but in all honesty, it's usually just go into the rift, stop time, and then do Cataclysm, which on this build takes up the entire map. You can see here, I'll go to the actual edge. Actually, I can't even go to the edge this side, it's too far. There we go. It's a big dome on this amount of range. It's pretty ridiculous. My other build has a much smaller dome. But the other build really is just go into the rift, run, do the objective, then go out of the rift. That's all it ever does. But anyway, that's Limbo. So thanks for watching. I shall see you next time where we'll take on Loki. It's also worth noting that with both this build and my Loki build, it doesn't actually take any Forma for either of these builds. This one here would need Forma if I were to do a max Firewalker and Prime Flow and Prime Continuity were maxed. I'd need, what, 1, 2, 3. I suppose I could do that. So that'll be one more. Yeah, it will require one Former if I wanted to technically fully max out this build, but I'm not particularly worried about it. Same with... Actually, no, this one here wouldn't even need... Still wouldn't need a Former even if I max these out. So it's an interesting thing with Limbo Prime is the fact that he just doesn't need Former, which is a really, really odd thing to say about a Warframe. I find that Loki Prime is very similar. My build doesn't need a Former for Loki Prime. They're both really, really good as they stand. Now, when they release the dual color channels, then I may need to Former things just so that I can have dual color channels. But until then, it's not entirely necessary. Alright, cool. Thanks for watching. I shall see you next time. We'll be back with Loki.